The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contest, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
All right, it's time for a Monday Walking Dead What If. I'm Justin.
Yeah, I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead. If you're noticing that my audio quality is way under JP's, it's because I am quarantining and doing this from home. I'm not positive for COVID-19, but I was in contact with someone who we are pretty sure was positive for COVID-19. So just as a precaution, I'm staying home for the next, it's been a few days and it's going to be a few days more. So the next few podcasts, I'll sound like this. So please just bear with me. Want to keep old JP safe there in the studio.
Oh, yeah, I'm safe and sound and snug as a bug.
In a rug?
Oh, no, I ain't in no rug. Don't get crazy.
Man. Well, all right. So today we're answering your Walking Dead What If questions. And it's funny because we did a kind of discussion on what we were expecting from the season 10 finale last Monday, and because we really didn't have that many Walking Dead What If questions, and we were like, hey, if we're kind of running out of steam or beating this thing into the ground, we'll start spreading it out a little bit. And you guys went to the comment section and threw us a ton of Walking Dead What If questions. So alas, the show will go on for now. So JP, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. Sure, I'm ready.
You positive?
Well, no, I ain't positive. I think I'm ready.
All right. Well, first one comes from Taylor and says, what if the masked character is just someone from the group Maggie was with? Maybe Maggie later comes out of the woods with others and helps Aaron and Alden out. Or do you guys think it'll be a bigger character reveal? I mean, I don't know, JP. What do you think? For the emphasis they kind of put on that person in the trailer, it would be kind of stupid for it to just be someone they don't even pay that much attention to, you know?
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to make it into a bigger character of sorts.
And Taylor, you could be exactly right. Like it could become a main character. Now that wouldn't be dumb. So let me rephrase that. It wouldn't be dumb if it was somebody we didn't know and then they became a big character. But if they just came out and were just kind of like Maggie's bodyguard and we didn't really get to know them that well and they just were, then it would just, to me, I don't know, it'd be kind of a waste of a reveal.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe it is like a whole clan of those kind of people with ninja weapons and masks doing all kinds of freaky stuff. So we'll see.
Freaky stuff as in Barn of Pleasures freaky? Or
maybe a little bit of everything,
Okay. But thanks for the question, Taylor. Thanks for the question, Taylor. Can't talk this morning. All right, let's see. Moving to the next Walking Dead. What if Michonne wasn't there to save Rick against the governor, choking him to death?
Oh,
well, Rick would have died.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, just think of the way that would, of the butterfly effect of that, though. I mean, he would have choked. I mean, there's so many layers to these questions, though. So, I mean, does Michonne end up killing the governor afterwards? Like maybe she gets there. How do you want to play it, JP? Do you want to imagine it like maybe Michonne, the governor still dies, but Michonne just got there a little bit too late?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume like Michonne would basically see the governor standing over Rick's dead body. And I mean, it's hard to imagine she wouldn't just go ahead and kill him right then and there, even more brutally than before.
So Michonne kills the governor. So the governor is still dead, but Rick is now lying dead on the ground. I mean, imagine that, man. I mean, you never have I guess at that point, I feel like Michonne would have made it her mission to find Carl and Judith, though.
Yeah, it would have been one or the other. She would have, became the posthumous parent, or she would have just became a loner again and left everything behind.
Which is where she was headed. So it's interesting because in the show, she had that moment when she was walking with the dead and she looked over and saw that zombie that kind of reminded her of herself. And that's when she went full Michonne and just chopped all of them up and then went and basically tracked Rick and Carl because, she kind of thought she was meant to be a loner and then realized that she didn't want to just drift away alone and she wanted to be a part of the group. So she went back and found Rick and Carl. But imagine, if you'd have had that moment and Rick would have been dead, I mean, maybe she would have tried to track Carl, but who even knows if Carl would have survived for long without Rick?
Yeah, man, that you want to think he's the survivor that could have made it, and who knows, maybe there would have been an alternate reality where Carl would have been with the Saviors. Who's to say? But it's hard to say. It's hard to know.
Like I said, Carl, they really went above and beyond pretty much to show us, and it was either the first or second episode after the mid-season finale in season 4, but that Carl needs Rick. I mean, we had that moment where, he was eating pudding up on the roof and just was out strolling about doing his thing without Rick, just thinking, because he had told Rick when Rick was unconscious, like, I don't need you. Mm-hmm. I can do this without you. But then we basically have it come back around to where Carl is like, I can't do this. I need you, whatever. When he thought he couldn't even kill Rick.
Right.
When he thought Rick was a zombie, which thank God he didn't. But so, I mean, they kind of went above and beyond to show us that Carl needed Rick to survive, because he got himself into quite a pickle right before then with those walkers after the pudding.
I wonder how much of that pudding he ate. That was a great big can.
I think they said behind the scenes he ate like the whole thing.
Jesus Christ.
I could be wrong. It's been a while, but I remember watching like the Talking Dead or something, and they were saying that Carl ate, Chandler Riggs ate like the whole thing.
Jeez, man.
But I mean, just think the group wouldn't have had their leader.
Yeah, they definitely would have. I don't see like the group as a whole making it to Alexandria.
Well, they all would have went. Well, that's the thing too. I believe they all would have died in Terminus.
Oh yeah,
because even if, let's just say that Carl. Maybe Michonne still tracked Carl down the way she tracked Rick. Let's just say Carl gets away from the prison. He thinks his sister's dead. He knows his dad's dead. Let's just assume that Carl leaves and somehow ends up in the same house, because they didn't get very far because Rick was pretty wounded. And Michonne tracks him, finds him, and they get back together. They still all would have went to Alexandria, to which I'm not going to say that not Alexandria, sorry. Terminus. And I'm not going to say that Michonne didn't have it in her to lead them out of there, but it was really Rick that I think motivated them to start arming themselves in that car and get ready to fight.
Yeah, I think morale definitely would have been a lot lower had Rick not been there.
And I mean, yeah, Carol would have saved them, but I mean, Carol saving them was literally like in the nick of time. Mm-hmm. I mean, who was it? Glenn was next. Yeah. Glenn was about to catch a bat to the head, which he eventually caught a bat to the head anyways, but he was about to catch a bat to the head and get his throat slit. I mean, the guy was drew back. So, I mean, imagine if Rick weren't there. I don't know, man. I just feel like if Rick wasn't there, we would have lost some main characters. And think about it, too. Think about this, even going back further, because there's so many ways to look at this. When they first get to Terminus, Rick's the one that realizes something's going on.
Yeah, that's true.
What if Rick wasn't there to notice what was going on? Then you would have had like Carl and Michonne and some of the others dining on human meat, unaware, and just doing their thing.
Yeah, well, at least they would have had a decent last meal. You say what they want, but that barbecued people meat looked pretty good. I mean, it looked like they were eating good on what they had. Yeah.
Like, man, what is this, a ribeye?
Yeah, I mean, they at least knew what they were doing when it came to butchering human flesh and cooking it.
Yeah, but I don't know, man, and I hate to say the group wouldn't have survived without Rick, because you got so many good survivors in that group, like Daryl and Michonne, who definitely we've seen are leaders and have what it takes to survive, and even to motivate and get people to survive as well. But I don't know, man. I just feel like with Rick gone, I feel like we'd have lost a lot more people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Not as many would have made it out of Terminus. It would have been a bloodbath.
And if they would have got to Alexandria, I mean, Rick was really, let's just say through some miracle, Carol, they get to Terminus and Carol still jumps in and saves them. And even without Rick, everything plays out the same, maybe with Michonne more in the leadership role. And they escaped Terminus, and then they had, end up finding themselves in Alexandria. I mean, the thing was, Rick was the main one that wanted to take the place over. Daryl didn't really trust anybody, and Carol was kind of playing her innocent role to get on the inside. But nonetheless, I think they were all pretty content, with the exception, again, of Daryl. But Rick's the one that was like, we got to take this place over. They need us to survive, blah, blah, blah. I mean, who knows? They might not have taken it over in the way they did. Like our group might be more of just like regular citizens versus leaders. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And who's to say if they would have made it out of the No Way Out story arc when the herd overtook Alexandria? They definitely wouldn't have had the insurrection against Negan. So yeah,
that's true.
Been the whole House of Cards would have came tumbling down.
Because Rick is the one that like went outside after Carl was shot and just started hacking at zombies, and that's what kind of inspired everyone else to get out there and join him. And then they all kung fu the zombies into oblivion. Mm-hmm. And without Rick there to lead the charge, they might have just, I don't know, they might have just hid out and eventually got overrun.
Yeah, so I think all in all, the group would have been effed in the A for the most part without Rick. So let's be glad that, Michonne killed the governor when she did.
Oh, yeah. So great question there, Dylan. Really appreciate that. Owen, our good pal Owen.
Ooh, love Owen.
What if Carl died way back in season 2 after being shot by Otis? Will we have seen a more savage Rick from season 2 onwards? And what would the tension be like between Rick, Lori, and even Shane from this point? Wow, that's a good question. Can you imagine if Carl didn't recover from that?
Yeah, I think that would have been it for Rick, man. I don't think he would have had anything to really stand up against Shane for, and Shane definitely would have blamed Rick for, Carl dying. And I think Rick would have just been a sad little boy sitting in the corner of Herschel's barn,
That is a great observation. I hadn't thought about that. You could be exactly right. Like Rick's need to protect and keep Carl, and of course, which I don't know, man. But then you've got, Lori finds out she's pregnant. Maybe that would have given Rick new life. But I do think you're right. I could see Rick basically just submit, because he would have told Shane, like, you're right. I couldn't keep him alive, and yada, yada, yada. And Shane would have had that edge over him in argument. So I do feel like Rick would have taken a back seat to Shane had he have lost Carl. Because, I mean, he tells Carl when Carl is actually dying that it was all for him. Mm-hmm. I mean, and just think, I mean, some of Rick's most savage, I don't know how some of his most savage moments, I mean, biting homeboy's throat out came from, watching a dude try to molest his son, and it just drove him to that dark place that he needed to go to rip that dude's throat out.
Yeah, man, I would like to think that Rick would have just set off on foot, just aimlessly, he's lost everything. And hopefully he would have found Eastman's cabin and, been trained in the ways of the whatever. Stick. Yeah, in the ways of the stick. I forget what his actual study of karate was. But
my name is Rick and I am a master of the stick. Dude, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
I can see almost like a Shaft intro. His name is Rick. He's bad with a stick. I know the stick.
No, man. Now that's a universe I would have liked to have visited.
I got new tricks, Durrell.
Yeah.
I learned how to use a stick.
Oh, man.
And aside from whipping your ass, I can roast weenies whenever I want.
There's so many great practical applications when you have a staff.
Oh, absolutely.
You can tell how deep the water is. Yeah, you can roast hot dogs. I mean,
in case of the coronavirus, you can use it to maintain social distancing. Just put it between you and the person talking.
That's right.
Rick, the man with the stick.
Yep.
But I'm with JP. I think that, I don't know if we would have had straight up savage. I mean, it would have definitely went one of two extremes. Either he would have just died inside and taken a back seat to Shane and pretty much just done whatever Shane said because he just, feels so much guilt for Carl dying. Or you would have had Rick would have gotten unhinged a lot quicker. And basically, he might have put him in the place where he's like, I've lost my son. Now all I've got is my wife and she's pregnant. So I've got to defend them. It might have put him in more of a Shane mindset earlier on.
Yeah, I think it would have been one extreme or the other. Totally neutered him or totally turned him into a savage.
Yeah, I don't think it would have progressed like it did way down the road when Carl died. I think if he'd have died that early, that young, that quick into the apocalypse, I feel like I said, I mean, Rick would have either A, been a complete savage from then on and just been solely focused on protecting Lori and the unborn child, or he would have just slinked back and basically just kind of let Shane call the shots because he feels he's not able to protect people.
Yep, one or the other.
Oh man, that was a good question.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, always a good one from Owen. Owen's a good one.
Oh yeah,
he's a good old boy.
All right, now we got Corey Andros has a ton, so don't let me forget to go back to those. Corey, we're going to get to those. We're going to get to some of these more one-off questions first, and then we'll wrap up with Corey's list of questions here, because Corey always keeps us stocked to the brim with some good Walking Dead what-ifs. This one is from Dylan. What if Milton never bit Andrea in the season 3 finale? How would Andrea pack the current story?
Well, did you see that article?
It would have sucked.
No. Have you seen that article recently where, what's her name, the actress, says that they had it plotted out to where it would be much like in the comic where Rick would have ended up with Andrea and blah, 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 blah. But
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I have no problem with the actress. She seems to be she actually helped, like I said a while back, helped bust like some human child trafficking and stuff a while back, like actually went undercover.
Oh wow.
Yeah. She's an incredible person. Lori Holden is her name. She's a great actress, and I like her as a person. And I mean, she even said that she was not happy with the way they had her play Andrea. Like that's not, she read the comics. She kind of got studied up on the character, and kind of like they did with Jesus. I mean, like you get ready for this role, you read the comic, and you're like, man, this is such a great character that I'm going to play. And then they just write it completely different. It's like they just looked at an image of the character and was like, okay, I see all I need to see. But no, I mean, like JP said, it's pretty much actually, that's how it would have played out. She would have followed more of the comic story arc. She would have ended up with Rick, which means Rick wouldn't have been with Michonne, which means Rick might not have even had a fling with Jess. It just depends on if she and Rick get together before or into Alexandria. I imagine it would have played a lot similar to like how it did with Michonne.
Yeah.
Like we would have been into the Negan War when maybe right before the Negan War is when I could have seen Andrea and Rick getting together, but she would have, what was it? She would have saved the hilltop somehow and would have left them with somebody else in charge and joined back up with the group.
That sounds right.
I don't know, man. From the beginning, Andrea, I mean, the first season, Andrea wasn't terrible, but then once you get into season 2, man, Andrea from season 2 up for me was just terrible. Everybody hated on Lori, and I understand why. Lori was an absolute, what. But at the same time, I found Andrea to be 10 times more annoying than Lori.
Oh,
Lori was in a very conflicted spot. Like, I understand, not justifying Lori being an asshole, but I mean, I understand it. I mean, you started banging your husband's best friend because it's the end of the world. People are eating each other, and you think your husband's dead. And, then he shows back up. So you think that this guy's a liar, and you don't know that, he truly did think your husband was dead. And I mean, it's a messed up spot to be in. So I can understand being a little off, but Andrea for me was just insufferable, man.
Do you think it would have played out with if Rick and Andrea had got together? You think Ezekiel and Michonne would have ended up together like the comic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean that's where we thought they were going to go, anyways.
So do you think the show would have been better off had they have stuck to those storylines? Or you think you prefer it the way that it actually played out?
That's a tough question, man. I mean, yes and no. I mean, I like Rick and Michonne together, and I like the way it played out with them because I feel like almost more than the relationship between Rick and Michonne, what I loved was the relationship between Michonne and Carl that grew as she went from being a stranger to a friend to very motherly.
Yes.
We watched that progression, and I don't know if we would have gotten much into the motherly part of Michonne had she have not gotten with Rick. And the motherly part of Michonne was one of my favorite parts. I mean, I love badass, loner, unhinged Michonne, but I also really like seeing that side of her with Carl. So we wouldn't have gotten that. So I don't know that I could say that I think it would have played off better if Rick would have gotten with Andrea and Michonne would have gotten with Ezekiel. But at the same time, my curiosity, I would love to see it just to see how it would have played out.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm kind of glad in that way that the show, deviated from the comic, just because it was fresher. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, and plus that scene, man, just with a naked Rick on a naked Michonne's butt under the sheets, man, it was just
did it for you.
Yeah, I would never give that up, not in a million years.
Yeah, I think Denai Guerrera is a lot like Andy Lincoln in the sense of just, I mean, it's well, that and the fact that she's just an incredible actor. So, I mean, you got, her and Andy Lincoln are both on par just as far as being incredible actors and bringing so much to the show. And of course, Norman Reedus is great. You got a lot of other great actors on the show, but, I feel like Denai Guerrera is just awesome. So to have not gotten that side of her, I don't know if I would think she was that awesome if we didn't get all this, this part of her.
It's true. It's true.
So I'm kind of like you. I think I would leave it the way it was. But, I mean, I would like to glimpse into another universe and just see how it would have played out with Andrea as Rick's girlfriend and Michonne getting with King Ezekiel.
Yeah. Yeah, same here.
Look, I said I didn't realize that so many of these were from Dylan. So, Corey, I apologize. I had put Corey's, said we'd save Corey's for last because it was so many, and didn't realize that a lot of these were from Dylan Watson, which we very much appreciate, Dylan. So, Corey, we are going to get you, my man. Don't think we putting you back last. You usually ask the very thought-provoking questions, so we have to have a special time for that.
Yeah.
Dylan also asked, what if Glenn was still alive on the show? Now, would Rick still be here, and would Jesus and Enid and Tara still be alive?
Huh. Now
it's really weird. I can't picture. I think Glenn went out when Glenn should have went out. As much as I hated it, and I would have liked to have seen him stick around longer, I truly feel like I don't see Glenn in All Out War.
Nah, he wasn't savage enough for that, man. Like you said, I think he went out exactly the way it was meant to happen in any universe.
Yeah, I mean, he got to go out being the good guy. I mean, he was a hero. I mean, he had this complete character arc from being, the timid little pizza boy to. I mean, I would love to see Glenn as a leader, but I feel like Glenn would have been more submissive to Negan.
Yeah, I definitely don't think he would have been as willing to take those risks like Rick was, like going to war with him at all. I'm sure he would have said, "Oh, there's another way. Let's find another settlement, something."
Oh yeah, I think Glenn would have just been like, "Look, I mean, you got to think about it from Glenn's perspective too, though. I mean, he's got a kid on the way, his first kid with his wife. So I mean, I think Glenn would have been just thinking purely on, I want to keep them safe and alive. I mean, you might have actually had Glenn and Rick be at odds because." Glenn might have been like, look, I've got a kid on the way. I've got a wife, I don't want to risk their safety for this revolution, and I mean, you could have you might have ended up having Glenn, Maggie, and the kid all separating. Like they might have went off on their own.
Yeah, I totally could have seen that too.
Just to get away from the war. I mean, I know we've seen Unhinged because some people might reference, back in like season 3 when Maggie was molested more or less by the governor and, Glenn gets unhinged and takes off after him and stuff. I mean, yeah, but that was a young, more immature Glenn. That was years ago. And on top of that, now he's got a child on the way. So I definitely think his priorities would have been different. And like I said, if Glenn wouldn't have died, by Negan's bat, I feel like then Glenn would have left.
Yeah, same here, man. I think he would have hit it for the hills. That would have been that.
Yep. And no, I don't think that. I still don't see Glenn being a part of the conflict. So with that, unless Maggie was killed or something, then yes, Glenn would have stayed and whatnot. But you got to think, if Glenn would have stayed, like say he didn't die and he stayed, I mean, Glenn kind of had to die for Maggie to step up and kind of become the leader. She was already showing leadership qualities for sure, but it was losing Glenn that made her take charge and become the leader of the hilltop that she became.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you might not even have that. So, I mean, like I said, if Glenn would have stayed alive, I think that Jesus, Enid, and Tara all still would have died because Glenn would have been out of there.
Yeah, man. I'm 100% on board with you on that.
Let's see. Also from Dylan, what if Heath and Tara stayed with the group and got captured by Negan's men and were put in the lineup with Rick and everyone else?
Ooh.
Well, actually, it's interesting because Heath was in the lineup in the comics.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he?
Because was it him because Negan, they didn't do it in the show, but in the comic it was funny. The reason why Negan had so much trouble picking out who he was going to kill was for like politically correct reasons.
Right.
Like it was either Heath or Glenn at first. He gets to and goes, F no, I ain't no racist.
Yeah.
And then, like he was like, I can't kill a woman. Like, so each person he had like this excuse. And I really think it was when he got to Heath that he was like, oh, I can't do that. Have everybody thinking I'm a racist, or something to that effect. So Heath was actually in the original lineup. And I believe if Heath and Tara was still in the lineup, it would have still played out the way it played out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because, I mean, he pretty much said it. I know he was trying to get under Maggie's skin. But, I mean, I think Negan was being truthful when he said that whole eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing was just bullshit.
Yeah.
He knew. I think Negan's all about subservience, all right? And even though we know that Rick wasn't being as subservient as he wanted, I think he saw in Rick the potential to break him. I think when he got to Abraham and, you basically got them all dead to rights, you could kill them all, and this guy isn't cowering like it. Because Andy Lincoln did a great job because even from the beginning of them being lined up, Rick looked terrified.
Yeah.
And here's the one guy that's not. I mean, everybody else is terrified, won't hardly look at you. They're just, and then here's this guy that when I get to him, he pokes his chest out. Like, I think Negan knew in that moment he had to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like it would have played out much the same way. And I mean, Heath was a good character the little bit of time we got him, but Heath wasn't no tough guy either in that regard. Heath wouldn't have stood up to Negan. He would have been cowering just like everyone else. So would Tara. If anything, Tara might would have gave him some lip, but I really feel like it would have played out exactly the same.
Yeah, same here, man.
Let's see. All right, it's from Dylan George. What if Sadiq was piked and Enid had the PTSD storyline? I think it would have been much more intriguing. Yeah, I wouldn't have minded that.
Yeah, that'd have been okay. That'd have been all right.
Enid got on my nerves, and Michonne had to put her in her place a time or two, and she was whatever. But I mean, I didn't, especially post Negan Enid, like after all that war Enid, I really was enjoying her. I mean, she was she had matured. She had a relationship, like she was showing leadership qualities. Yeah, I actually wouldn't have minded that because the thing is like, I don't have any problem with the actor that played Sadiq, but I don't think either one of us were that big on Sadiq as a character.
Nah, man, I was glad to see him go.
I mean, no offense to Sadiq, but I mean, you're the character that got Carl died to bring you on the show, more or less. So
yeah. So
maybe it would have been a little animosity there, but it would have been interesting to see Enid having to deal with that.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you could have opened up a lot of possibilities for like a Chandler Riggs return. Carl could have been in her head.
Oh yeah, it's like a phantom buddy,
like maybe guiding her. Yeah, maybe he's like guiding her through it.
Oh man, yeah, that would have been a lot better, and we would have had just that fewer episodes with Sadiq. So,
and Dylan George says that Connie is actually dead. If that's true, I'm very, very disappointed.
Oh man, I mean, I need to see some sources on this.
I like Connie a lot. I really thought that was a cool element. She was a deaf character, and we got to see kind of the challenges she faced versus the other survivors. And I still think one of the coolest scenes ever filmed in The Walking Dead history was in the cornfield with Connie. Oh
God, yeah, man.
Where she had no hearing and just kind of showing it from her point of view. Man, that was brilliant. So I really, really hope that Connie. I mean, I've grown to like her sister Kelly quite a bit. But I would rather see Kelly go than Connie.
Agreed.
But if Connie is actually dead, then how is that going to affect Carol and Daryl's relationship? Or, you know what? I don't know if Dylan George is actually saying Connie is dead, as in like, I know Connie's dead.
What if
might just be kind of setting the scene. Like, Connie's dead. How does that affect? Okay. I hope. But I think that Daryl would definitely be a little pissed at Carol because Carol let her hot-headedness get the better of her, and it caused someone he cared a lot about to die.
Yeah, I definitely think it would set up Carol's death. She would have to do something grandiose to redeem herself with Daryl, and next thing you know, she's laying herself out there and pulling a Madison or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I definitely think that would put a strain on Carol and Daryl's relationship. I mean, because this whole time he was trying to stop her from going after Alpha. And, I mean, Carol was being bullheaded and just wouldn't listen. And it ultimately ended up causing them to get trapped in a cave.
Yeah.
To which, I mean, they didn't necessarily have to run after her either. But, I don't know, man. I dare say I think it could cause a rift that might not be healed anytime soon.
Oh, yeah, man. I think that's definitely going to be the case. I think it's going to eventually lead to Carol exiting the show.
I think that Daryl would definitely have Carol's back. I mean, he'd still be there for her if she needed him, but I definitely could see him being way less conversational, not embracing her when basically trying to avoid her for the most part, unless her life's in danger.
Yeah, and who can blame him?
Mm-mm. And now, let's say Maggie never left. What would be different? I think Jesus and Enid would still be alive. Yeah, I don't know about Enid, but I definitely think Jesus would still be alive, which, again, it's hard to say with Jesus because he was only killed off because the actor wanted off the show.
Yeah.
So you almost have to create this whole other universe where the actor wanted to stay in the show.
Yeah, where they actually utilized Jesus properly.
Yeah. But, for the most part, I think that Jesus, I don't know, though. Would he? I mean, I feel like Maggie would have definitely sent him out there. I mean, he's one of the most combat capable she has. So, I mean, even with Eugene missing, because, I mean, I'm trying to think, like, go back to the beginning. It was Eugene and Rosita were out and they ran into the Whisperers and Rosita escaped and hid Eugene and she came back and was at the hilltop, and told them that because we know Maggie and Michonne had some beef or whatnot, so they still would have been separated the way that they were, but Rosita would have still ended up at the hilltop. And I believe if Eugene were out and Daryl was going after him, I don't know, I could still see Maggie telling Jesus to go with him.
Yeah, I think things would have played out more or less the way they did. I think.
I mean, he's the best fighter she's got. And he's a good leader. So, I mean, of course, she probably would have sent him. And I mean, unless for some reason she was like, no, I need you here. I don't want to leave us completely defenseless.
Yeah, and I definitely don't see her just swooping in at the exact right time, to save his life. I don't think that would have happened.
No, but Dylan, tell us how you think it would have played out. I'd love to hear. Half the time we do our what if scenarios, and then the listeners give us things we didn't even think about. So please let us know. What about Maggie staying there makes you believe that they would still be alive? Because I'd love to hear that.
Same here.
And maybe we could do another discussion on it. That's what's so fun about these.
Oh, yeah.
But appreciate the questions there, Dylan. Thank you so much. Allie Smith says, what if Negan was part of that Atlanta group? So we play with the timelines and locations a bit, and Negan went to the hospital Rick was in to put down a zombified Lucille. He would meet Rick and be with him when he was reunited with Lori and Carl. How would Negan deal with Shane, the governor, Terminus, etc., alongside Rick and the rest of the group?
Ooh, now that is interesting.
Man. That's a...
Yeah, it's a lot to swallow.
Yeah, it is. What are you thinking?
So Negan is there from day one, ground zero. I don't know if he would have been as quick to seize power because he's actually with some capable people that don't necessarily need him to survive. I definitely think he would have been a crucial part of the operation. But
yeah, because that's part of the comic, is that Negan basically becomes Negan because people won't listen to him and they keep dying. So more or less, it's one of those, all right, people are stupid. I'm the only one that knows how to survive. From now on, you're going to do what I say, and I'm going to force you to be alive, whether you like my ways or not.
Yeah.
Because we learned that Negan is a selfish prick, but at the end of the day, under all the layers of asshole, there is a tiny glimmer of someone who does genuinely want to save people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm with you. I think we would have gotten a lot tamer of a... I mean, I think his personality would have been the same, but I honestly feel like he would have had kind of a Merle role.
Yeah, man, he definitely would have butted heads with Shane when he sees how quick Shane is to kind of sacrifice someone for the greater good, I guess you could say. And if he was going to butt heads with anybody, I think it'd probably be Shane.
Well, I mean, Shane's a hothead, and Negan. There's one thing that will set a hothead off is someone with a smart mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that plenty in real life myself. I mean, if you got somebody with a quick temper who is a hothead. And then you've got someone, I mean, in real life and in cinema history, I mean, look at Doc Holliday. I mean, he ran his lips nonstop and would make people attack him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I kind of see that type of scenario, like Negan being Doc Holliday and Rick being Wyatt Earp, and like the Tombstone scenario, where I could definitely see, Shane getting hot-headed, Negan making some smart comments. And I don't know, man. I dare say Shane and Negan might have had to have killed one or the other.
Yeah, it almost seems like that's what it would have happened. Instead of Rick and Shane, it would have been either that, man, or they would have been on the same page, and they would have been like, man, who's this Rick dude think he is,
Well, it just depends. I mean, Negan could have definitely played Shane to his advantage to get Rick out of power. But I mean, there's one thing we've seen about Negan is that Negan doesn't seem to be power hungry, kind of in the way some people are. I mean, Negan now has had chances to kind of take back and be, I don't know necessarily, I mean, like, it's kind of like now that Negan sees that these people are capable of surviving and don't need his type of rule. He might not come out and say it, but it's almost like he's seen the error of his ways. I mean, he knows that, the way he was doing it wasn't the right way, because, I mean, he had the chance to sit the throne with Alpha and just completely, I mean, he was basically with the winning team.
Yeah.
And could have, and quickly put himself up there amongst the top, and then, just threw it all away to help the original group. So, I mean, I don't know that Negan is necessarily a power hungry person. I think that, if we follow because we haven't gotten his backstory on the show yet, but I assume it's very similar to the comics. So, I mean, if we follow the comic story arc, we know that it never was that he was just like, oh, I want to be king of the world. It was just more or less, you know what? These people are dumbasses. They keep dying. If I want them to live, I'm going to have to step up and just force them to live.
Yeah, I think if he wasn't put in that position, he might have turned out a little more reasonable.
Yeah, I could definitely see him running his mouth and making enemies. But at the end of the day, I could have honestly seen a more sympathetic story arc where he sees the constant rift between Rick and Shane and starts realizing, because Negan's a very smart guy. I mean, he can read people better than almost anyone on the show. So, I mean, it's like, well, I say that, and he actually thought that Rick and them were going to submit. But with that said, we've seen examples of how, he's pretty quick to know what's going on based on just a little bit of information. So, I mean, I feel like Negan would have seen the growing rift between Shane and Rick, and maybe even would have killed Shane for Rick.
Yeah.
And then, that would have definitely played out differently. I don't think Rick would have been, because, I mean, I think Rick had to see Shane try to kill him to get the picture. I mean, even after their fight at that jail or whatever it was, I mean, Rick still had some hope that they were going to be hunky dory again.
Yeah. And
Shane was the one that's like, man, we tried to kill each other. He thought we were just going to be fine after that.
Right.
So, I mean, I think Rick would have, I could have seen that being the cause of, you might have ended up, man, that would have been a cool story arc. So bear with me. So Negan's with the group, more of a backseat role, but he's still Negan. He's got a smart mouth, but he's not in control. He sees the growing, because we know that Negan has a lot of respect for Rick, even when he hated him. He still loved the guy. I mean, especially even more so in the comics. He's got a full-on man crush on Rick. Just wants to make Papa Rick happy. But I could have definitely seen Negan seeing the growing rift and realizing like what kind of man Shane is, and knowing that either Shane was going to have to die or Shane was going to kill Rick. And I could see Negan luring Shane away and killing him, and then Rick being furious about it and branching Negan, like making Negan leave for killing Shane. He might agree, once Negan explains, like, look, this is why I did it. You saw it yourself. The man was blah, 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 blah. Rick might not, he wouldn't kill him, but he'd be like, you need to leave.
Yeah.
And then Negan would go off and maybe start the Savior's steal.
Maybe. But yeah, it kind of treat him like he did Carol after she toasted those two people in the prison.
Exactly.
Just like exile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I appreciate what you did and I understand why you said you did it, but I can't have you here.
Right.
The rest of the group don't want you here. You got to go. And I mean, I think then you still would have had, Negan would have found some weaker minded people and established the Saviors. But then how much wilder would it have been when he finds Rick in the group? He's not just introducing himself. He's Negan from all the way back in season 2.
Yeah.
that's now got this group and, just completely changed Negan. I think that would have been cool as hell.
Oh, yeah, man. That would have been a wild way to see it play out.
But yeah, great question, man. Let's see. Well, what's sad though is we completely. Allie is asking like how he would have helped handle all these different situations, and basically what we did was had Negan roll out in season 2 and just avoid all these other scenarios.
Yeah.
Let's see. How would Negan deal with Shane? Well, we already said we think Negan would kill Shane. Now, I would still love to have seen Negan going up against the governor. Just those two personalities clashing.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I know it kind of sounds like a cop out, but I don't know that Negan would have ever made it to those situations like Terminus and the governor and all. But I mean, I imagine with the governor, he would have handled it. I still believe he would have followed Rick's lead. I feel like Negan would continuously do some like secret agent stuff.
Oh, for sure, man.
I feel like with the governor, he would have done the same thing he did with the Whisperers. He'd have snuck his way in, been real charismatic, had us thinking, man, is he about to betray Rick and them? And then, bam, stab the governor in the back. Do you think he would have seduced and slept with the governor like Andrea did?
If he had to. I think if he had to.
Oh, God, we have the Alpha and Negan scene, but instead of Alpha and Negan, it's Negan and the governor.
Oh, goodness. Probably still both kept their socks on.
And then, he stabs him in his sleep while he's there sleeping.
Oh, he just stabbed him, all right. Over and over and over again.
Now, Terminus, again, Negan, for the most part, reads people pretty well. So I feel like Negan and Rick would have been on the same page. I mean, I feel like it would have played out much the same. They would have gotten put in cars and stuff. I think Negan would have made it a little funnier, but I think he would have realized that something won't right.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
But yeah, that's a great question, Allie. Let's see. David Ortiz, longtime listener, man. We love David. Haven't heard from you in a while, David. Says, what if the masked guy was, wait for it, Carl? Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, man.
He's back. Never died. Was just buried for a long time. And he says, whatever, I'd accept it. It would fix the stupidest, biggest mistake the show ever made. Yeah, no I agree 100%.
Yeah. For the longest time, I was saying Carl faked his death, and maybe David Ortiz has found the perfect way to connect those dots.
He's going to come back. Dad, I'm a ninja.
Yeah.
Where's my dad? Oh, he's gone. He's been gone for at least a season or two.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Simba Tree says, what if Dale actually shot and killed Shane at the scene where he pointed the gun at Shane defending the bag of guns and said, this is what it's going to take? And if he actually pulled the trigger, Shane kept walking and grabbed the gun because he knew Dale didn't have it in him. Scene was in season 2. Another what if? Okay, so wait a minute. So we got two-part questions. So for the first one, I mean, just imagine that. I mean, they might have lived out their days happily on the farm.
Yeah, that would have been something.
Because you got to think, let me think. Now, that happened, I'm trying to think, just because it's been a while. Now, that happened before the whole Randall thing, right?
Yes.
So Rick would have still went after Herschel, because let me think. Herschel, well, no, I don't know. No, I mean, so many things would have played out differently had Dale have just killed Shane. You wouldn't have had the barn clearing, because Shane led the charge on that.
Yeah.
And because you didn't have the barn clearing, Herschel wouldn't have went to that bar after seeing, his wife and the people he knew coming out the barn get gunned down and realizing that he was wrong. So he would have stayed on the farm and still been hard-headed. They would have never gotten into that shootout and would have never brought Randall back. So who knows, man? If Shane would have died, if Dale would have killed Shane in that moment, then granted, they would have had a barn just full of walkers, but they might have lived out their days peacefully, if not a little uneasy, but peacefully on the farm.
Yeah, and I think eventually Herschel would have, realized what time it was and did what needed to be done,
Something would have had to have happened
at
some point for Herschel to realize. But, I mean, then again, I don't know. If Shane wasn't there to clear the barn, Herschel might have just continued to pack it to the point that they eventually get out and overrun the farm.
Yeah, that could have happened too.
So, like I said, I feel like it played because you wouldn't have had the whole the farm get overrun had Shane and Rick not been out in that field, and Rick stabbed Shane, and Shane shot his gun, and then Carl shot his gun again, the zombies would have kept on going.
Yeah, probably so.
So you would have either had one or two things. They would have lived out their days, well, one of three ways, though two of them kind of go together. Either, all right, so they would have lived out their days on the farm peacefully and either eventually cleared the barn with Herschel's blessing, or, the barn would have been just fine. Or they live out on the farm and then the walkers break out of the barn eventually because it's so many of them in there, and then just overrun the farm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great question. What if Lori successfully aborted Judith like she tried, but then spit out abortion pills so she would have been alive because childbirth is what killed her? So if she would have actually aborted Judith, I mean, we'd have a lot more relationship drama in the group.
Yeah, and still a very annoying character on the show.
I still believe her days were numbered, though. I mean, even if she would have aborted Judith and would have survived, I mean, I feel like she still would have died in the governor's final assault.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Lori would have stuck around too long. I think it was very important for the character development of Rick for her to die.
Oh, yeah, she had to. I mean, her dying is what tipped him over the edge and really made him become Shane. I mean, I know they didn't harp on it as much, but I mean, I feel like Shane's whole, I'm a better man, I'm a better husband, I can keep her alive, you can't. I feel like that was in the back of Rick's mind and what really pushed him to become a Shane-Rick hybrid.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great questions. We appreciate them. Thank you so much. Now going to Corey, because he's got quite a few. But we'll try and knock these out because it is getting close to time to wrap it up. I'm still working on my Alexandria fan fiction.
Ooh, nice.
Awesome. But to keep the interaction going, and maybe you guys have done some of these, I can't remember. So if we have done it, we'll definitely let you know. What if Rick killed Negan instead of sparing him? How would that affect the storyline going forward? Rick would still be on the show.
Yeah. Seems like he probably would be.
I mean, if Rick would have killed Negan, Maggie would have had no animosity. I don't really think anybody else there other than maybe Jesus would have been too upset with killing Negan. I mean, Daryl would have been cool with it. Maggie would have been cool with it. I mean, if he would have just killed Negan, then Maggie wouldn't have had to have plot behind his back to get in with Negan, and then Daryl wouldn't have taken him off on that side dirt bike ride, and they wouldn't have got stuck in that pit and gotten separated and had to just do all of the things that led to Rick being flown off the show. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if Rick would have killed Negan, how would it have affected the show? Rick would still be on it.
I don't know that, which I know he was already dead at that point, but if Carl was still around, I definitely think that would have created some friction with him, but I was thinking about Carl was dead, so doesn't matter. Carl
was already dead. No, if Carl was still alive, that definitely would have been a whole nother thing. Like, Maggie would have been happy with him, but Carl wouldn't have been happy.
Yeah.
I feel like Michonne, I feel like Michonne was just kind of backing her man.
Yeah, me too. I think she could have cared less if he lived or died.
Yeah, I think Michonne would have just been like, oh, you're going to kill him? Cool. Good. Bye.
Yeah.
Let's see. What if Rick never died? How would his role in the Whisperer saga go? Oh man. It would have played out a lot like the comic. You would have, I mean, more or less, you would have seen Rick in Daryl's role.
Yeah, I think so too.
That would have been the most. I mean, Rick would have kind of taken on a mixture of Carol and Daryl's role. I mean, he, of course, wouldn't have had one of his kids die unless, because Carol was driven by Henry's death. But I mean, the interaction she had with Alpha, you would have definitely seen like a mixture of Daryl and Carol storylines being with Rick. Because if Rick were still here, and let's just say for the sake of it that Rick was still here, if Carl was still here, then you would have had Carl taking Henry's story arc, which I don't think they would have killed Carl off the way they did Henry. But I don't know. I think it would have played out very similar, but you would have seen Rick taking on more of Daryl's roles. Because Rick, like in the comic, Rick had that moment with Alpha up on the hill where she shows him the horde.
Mm-hmm.
She's got him, got the double barrel pointed at him and kind of walks him out there and is like, here's what I can do to you. So stay on your side of the border.
Uh-huh.
So what do you think?
I definitely think it would have more or less played out exactly like it did in the comic. I think Rick would have used Negan to get close to Alpha, just the whole thing,
Mm-hmm. But yeah, great question. What if Jesus would have lived? Do you think he ever would have stepped up to the leadership role at Hilltop that everyone wanted him to? Would he and Aaron have become a thing? I think him and Aaron would have definitely become a thing.
Yeah, that goes without saying. They definitely would have been, they would have been inside each other. As far as him being a leader, I think that if he had to step up, man, I think he would have.
I mean, he definitely was a leader. I feel like it's just the thing that would have taken for Jesus to have stepped up would have been to know that Maggie was not coming back.
Yeah.
I think Jesus was more or less just in his head. He was just keeping a seat warm.
Right.
So, for him, he wasn't trying to get too comfortable because in his mind, he wasn't the leader. He was just kind of holding out for Maggie to come back. Now, if something would have happened where Maggie wrote him a letter and was like, I'm never coming back, then yeah, I think Jesus would have definitely stepped up and realized how serious his role was. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and him and Aaron were a big thing in the comic, and actually probably one of the best couples in the comic. So, it would have been cool to see them as a couple in the show.
Yeah, but sadly, another thing that never came to fruition.
Nope. All right, now what if Tyrese and Sasha would have been introduced in season 2, kind of similar to the comic? How would that have changed things? I like Tyrese a lot, and I was very sad to see him go. But I mean, I think you and I have both agreed at times that they just did not, kind of like Jesus, they just did not do him justice in the show.
Nah, man.
Compared to his comic counterpart.
Yeah, he was a very watered down version. That's for sure.
So I mean, honestly, if we would have gotten the same Tyrese that we got, I don't know. I don't know that it would have been really any better. I mean, I try to think of ways he contributed to the conflict, but I mean, I know Milton had asked him, could he provide a layout of the prison, but that didn't really benefit them in any way because they came in and they scared them off in what was still, in my opinion, one of the worst season finales of the entire show.
Yeah, without a doubt.
We got these people that want to kill us. They're breaking into our home with the intent to kill all of us. Let's scare them away.
Throw some firecrackers at their feet.
Come on, Carl. I mean, really, to me, that's just, I could do a whole podcast on how stupid that was. I mean, I get we don't quite have Savage Rick just yet, but he's savage enough. I mean, you gun down those two guys in the bar. You gun down people inside of Woodbury when you were trying to rescue your people. So they're coming into your home, locked and loaded, ready to kill you. And not only do you have the advantage, but you've got them dead to rights. Yeah. I mean, surrounded. You could literally just mow them down with no issues. And if someone would say, oh, well, he might have been worried Andrea would be in the mix, to hell with that. I mean, you could have seen, okay, Andrea's not in this group. Let's take them out.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a whole other discussion.
We're going to put some marbles in front of this door. They'll slip up. Hopefully no one will get hurt too bad, but
I watched this one movie called Home Alone, guys, and I think it's a really great way to handle the Woodbury people and the governor. No, you should just mow them down.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved it if Daryl would be like, no, we're just going to mow them down. But think about it, Daryl, how funny would it be to hit them in the face with a paint can?
Yeah.
I got some of Carl's toy cars left over. I'll take them down there and we'll trip him up real good. He'll sure feel stupid for messing with us.
Yeah. Jeez.
Oh, man, that was such a stupid finale.
Yeah.
But I really don't feel like it would have changed the story much. I mean, if the characters were the same, I mean, Tyrese really didn't evolve much. I mean, that was kind of his thing, was that he refused to evolve. And it eventually is, when he died, that was the whole theme, was he just wasn't meant for this world.
Yeah, just a gentle giant that had to go out like that.
So honestly, I don't think it would have changed it much. I mean, you might not have had the whole Tyrese and Rick going crazy because they would have found the prison with them and they would have never went to Woodbury. But honestly, I'm trying to think. I don't think that Tyrese and Sasha being at Woodbury did much other than they were the ones to, I don't know. I mean, I just don't think it would have changed the story that much.
No, I don't think it would have either.
The final one, the big one.
Oh, boy.
I don't think we've ever covered.
Oh, boy.
What are you turning in a towel-y? Oh, I'm so high right now. I don't know what's going on.
No,
Oh, boy, the big one.
No.
What if Daryl never existed on the show? Would Rick continue to lose his right-hand men like the comics, Shane, Tyrese, and Dwight to an extent? Oh, yeah. I think it would have played out much closer to the show. And as much as I do love our Dare Bear, Daryl's a staple of this show, and I'm glad he's there. Which, if you'd asked me in like season 6 and 7, I would have told you I didn't care. I couldn't have cared less about Daryl. But I do love Daryl, and I think he's really, before All Out War and after All Out War, Daryl is awesome. During it, he just kind of sucked. But, man, it would have played out much more like the comic. And, I mean, and to an extent, as much as I love Daryl, I kind of would love to see an alternate universe where Daryl wasn't in this show. Because a lot of characters were watered down so that Rick could have Daryl as a right hand.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I think we would have went through a lot more sidekicks had Daryl not have been there to fill that role.
I mean, in the comic, Tyrese was like his right-hand man, and then like mentioned for a while, Dwight was kind of like one of his right-hand men, and Abraham was one of his right-hand men. And I mean, we just really, even though we do love those characters and we had some great moments with them, they weren't used to their potential because the writers didn't want to move Daryl to the side and let someone else step into that right-hand man role.
That's right.
But yeah, I feel like it would have played out a lot more like the comics. We'd have had more. Tyrese would have been more savage. They would have wrote him more savage. He would have been Rick's right-hand man. I felt like his death would have been a lot more brutal. He would have gotten Herschel's death. A part of me, as much as I love Daryl and he's how much he means to us and as viewers of the show, part of me thinks that in some ways it would have been better without Daryl.
Probably so. He's one of those untouchable characters, and I think the less of them you have, the better off you are. If that makes sense. I mean,
just think about that. Like you've gotten so used to Daryl's Rick's right hand, and nothing's going to happen to Daryl. But imagine a show where Rick's had 3 or 4 right hand men who've all been taken out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Abraham, Tyrese. I mean, so many characters that you grow to love, and you feel they're untouchable because they're right there beside Rick Grimes. But nope, they're dead.
Yep. So I think you're right, man. We might have ended up with a better show without Daryl, as crazy as that is to say.
At least in some regards, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for the questions, guys and gals. You know we love you. Please, if you want The Walking Dead What Ifs to continue, we need the questions because we don't want to feel like we're just dragging something out that no one wants to listen to. So, throw us some Walking Dead What Ifs. I mean, I don't even care if it's something crazy. What if Booker T was in The Walking Dead?
Booker T from WCW?
Yeah.
All right. Five-time world champion.
What if Hulk Hogan was Rick's right hand man?
Can you dig it, sucker? I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on Booker T.
Rick would be like, "You're my brother." Amen, brother.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
I say when we get the governor and his people in our prison, I come off the top rope, brother, and elbow drop him.
Oh, man.
I still want to do the Home Alone thing. I think it would make Carl happy. But yeah, just ask those questions. Throw them in the comments section. Of course, if you hashtag them, what if, or Walking Dead, what if, it makes it easier for us to find them. If we missed your question, we do apologize. Just please. I know one of our longtime listeners, Jonas, says that we missed 2 of his questions, but it's been so long now. I can't remember which ones it was. So Jonas, if you're listening, throw them in the comments section. Just load us up with those Walking Dead what ifs, and we'll be back at you Monday.
We sure will.
But in the meantime, also got to mention our Patreon. Be sure to check that out, patreon.com/thepodcastingdead, or just go to patreon.com and search for The Podcasting Dead.
Oh, dude, can you believe it? We're up to 24 patrons. Marcos Antonio Andrade. I think I said Andrade. Anyway, we got a new one, Marcos. So shout out to you, Marcos. Also, Heart Attack Perspectives, maybe a home designer. I don't know for sure, but shout out to you as well.
Oh, and you actually, and we do secret contests. As of right now, we're basically doing Walking Dead drawings where we're drawing names and sending out Walking Dead merchandise. So
right.
For as little as $1 a month, you can get in on that. And every little bit is appreciated to help support the channel. So check that out. You get 8 extra podcasts a month for as little as $1. Of course, if you want to throw $5, $10 in there, we're cool with that. But $1 is perfectly fine, too.
Yep.
But in the meantime, We will see you soon tomorrow on Patreon, and then we will see the rest of you back here for Weird Wednesday. Where we're going to get supernatural.
Oh.
Oh.
Hello.
But in the meantime, I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead.
Bye-bye.
Peace.